Okay, this is going to be a demonstration of how to tighten up some vocals. So what we see here is a double-tracked lead vocal of a verse. I'm going to play a little bit of it for you.
10 o'clock on the dial, she was ready to blow.
Okay, I'm going to,
10 o'clock on the dial, she was ready to blow.
I just panned it left and right. I don't know if you can hear that through the microphone or not, but all right, so it's kind of a singing, rapping kind of thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to break this up into um, syllables so that each syllable is a separate audio file, or actually a separate region. It's still the same audio file because it's non-destructive, right? And I'm breaking them up using Command E or Edit. Command E. So I select the region and I hit Command E. Command H heals. It's the heel. If I select again and I go Command E, that separates the region. Okay? So I'm just kind of, first pass is just to kind of go in there and get these all separated, because if I start to nudge something, I don't want to nudge anything that comes later. So now I'm just going to nudge each of those pieces. Now this is, you can, as you start to do this a lot, you'll notice that you can tell what a word is a lot of times just from the shape of the consonant. So in this case, the shape of this consonant, that's a T.
10
See, it's a T. And then this could be a couple of things, but I know because I've just listened to it a second ago, it's a C.
o'clock,
So that's a C,
gone, gone,
and that's a K sound.
gone, gone. Da, da.
So the first thing we need to do is to line up those consonants. So now there's a couple ways to do that. I could take one track and then use that as sort of a sacrosanct track. Like I'm going to basically respect its groove. Like what he did was amazing, so I'm not going to move it around. But I don't feel like what this guy did was amazing. So instead, I'm just going to kind of lock it up to the grid a little bit more, so it's got a little bit more punch with the beat. And so the consonants, I find the best place to put the consonants is right before the beat that you're lining it up to, so that the vowel happens at the beat. That's where I feel it sounds the best. So I line it up like this. Okay. Now, you can see that these two consonants don't match. They're different lengths. So we need to make them the same length. There's a couple ways to do that. The easiest way is I just simply make a Command E. I make a mark there. Now I'm going to nudge it to the right. Oh, that's too much. Let me change the nudge amount to 1 millisecond instead of what it was, and 10 milliseconds. And then we're going to put a crossfade there. We'll put a fade in there, fade it in kind of sloped up. And
10, 10.
Now those match perfectly. Now we'll move on to the next one. Now this one's a little ahead of the beat, so I'm going to nudge it back. So the vowel starts right about the top of the line. Okay. Now again, consonants don't match, so I'm going to nudge this one in. It's easier to make something shorter than it is to make something longer. So if you'll notice, when I see that there's two and one is longer than the other, one is larger, it's easier for me to nudge the longer one backwards and make it smaller. You're never going to know the difference, except that you're going to now hear the two consonants perfectly in sync. Okay, now for fades, I did that really fast. Here's what you can do with fades. either, depending on what I'm doing here, so you can see as I move this forward, I'm seeing now the end of this because I've taken time out. I've made this one go further to the right, and then this one further to the left. So there's very little overlap left now between the two of them. Plus, there's probably a little bit of noise. If you zoom in, you can see there's a little bit of noise, and it kind of peaks up there and peaks down there. So your best bet with this is going to be to do a fade in, fade out. So I'm just going to leave it like that, and I'll put a nice fade in here, or fade out there, and a fade in here, and just leave this gap. And that's going to be fine. You're not going to really notice that gap.
10 o'clock, 10 o'clock.
If it feels a little too staccato, which it does, then I can nudge the fade back a little bit. And since I'm doing such a kind of a slope, kind of ski slope type of fade, this little bit of data down here, which is going to be this attack transient, should be faded. See, there it is, that little attack transient. So you can see that might be a problem. So I'm just going to there. Let's see what we got here. So I can go further on that one. So it's good to kind of zoom in a little bit and see how much space you have, because you can hear those clicks if I left that attack transient in there.
10 o'clock, 10 o'clock.
Now what I can do is I still want to close that gap up a little bit more. So I'm going to actually nudge this fade out. The same with this one. This one I have a little bit more room with. Now what that did is it exposed a little click in the noise. Couple clicks in the noise. Okay, so we're going to go in and declick it. All right, use the pencil tool, and you just draw a nice waveform there. Oh, they got some clicks there. Get rid of those. Aha. Oh, there's a couple more. And this is like art. You know, you get good at it if you do it a lot. Oop. And I have done it a lot. Okay, now that should be nice and clean, no caffeine.
10 o'clock.
That sounds pretty good.
10 o'clock.
Now I can hear that there's a little bit of crackle, smackle, smacking of lips in between here. So I'm going to go in and we're going to fix some of those crackles before we even figure out what we're going to do. Now the ending of notes, when they're uneven, that's a little bit more of a challenge. It's fixable, but it's a little more of a challenge. There's a few ways that we can do that. One is to just simply fade one of them out a little sooner than the other. That can work sometimes. And any kind of vertical spike is going to give you a click or some kind of noise, some kind of sound that's probably undesirable. So I'm just scrolling up. There's another. That's a click. These happen for it could be a variety of things. It could be you know, the person moving. Could be they didn't drink enough tea. Their lips are smacking. Something like that. It could just be movement. And it can also just be tiny little electrical spikes anywhere in the circuit. Now that one, okay, let's line these guys up first. Now we've got a couple things with this. This is a compound syllable. Kana, right? So it's two syllables in one. So when you got a double compound syllable, sometimes you got to split them. Now these look pretty good in sync. So I'm just going to nudge this guy so that the consonant is right there. I'm going to line that part of the consonant up. Okay, that looks good. Put a fade right there, crossfade. To do that, the shortcut is just the F key. No other modifiers, just straight up. If you do any place where you have two regions that touch each other, two clips that touch each other, press the F button, puts a fade real quick. You can even select a whole region of fades and hit the fade, and it'll just do all of them. I don't want to do that there, but it'll do a whole bunch in with one key. Pretty cool. All right, here, the noise floor is pretty consistent. So I'm going to just fade them together like that. Keep the noise floors, make it a little more natural.
Clack on it.
So I didn't need to fade in, fade out on that one. Over here, we've got a real bad spike. Fix that. Got a couple spikes over here. This one's the worst. And, oh, this is probably, I didn't do a good job the first time. Okay. That looks pretty good. And, oh, there's a few more in here. These are pretty nasty. Now you want to be careful when you do this because this is destructive editing. I'm actually editing the WAV file when I do this. So I'm pretty comfortable doing it. But if you're not comfortable altering the WAV file itself, you might want to make sure you have a backup of the WAV file. So if you screw it up, you can always go back to the original WAV file. So that's something to consider if you're squeamish about declicking. You can also just cut the clicks out physically, but I like to keep as much of the natural noise floor as possible so that it doesn't sound super artificial. That's why I tend to just do this. I get better results by penciling the clicks out myself. Oops. So the idea is you're looking at the waveform itself. The waveform here is going, so you want to kind of mimic that. When you're drawing out the clicks, you can see that my click draw, when I'm drawing out the clicks, it's still mimicking the shape of the waveform. I'm drawing in as if I'm extending that waveform so you don't get an artificial type of, suddenly it just goes to silence type of thing. Okay.